The sweet sound of poverty. Hello and welcome to Ginexplicable. My name is Sophia and I am your host today, and today we're going to be talking about something fucking crazy. I'm going to be talking about a mystery and I'm going to be drinking some gin, so if that sounds like a bit of you, stick the F around, grab yourself a beveragino. I am drinking a shit one today, but it is 7% and do you know what? It's fine and I'll live. Cheers. Today I'm going to be talking to you about a mystery that might be 100% bullshit, but it's actually very interesting to me. It's really piqued my interest and made me want to do this because despite it being my 100% decision to do these videos, sometimes I'm like, why am I doing them? Because I start to research something and I'm like, I'm not interested. This one's very, very interesting, even though it might be bullshit. You decide. I wanted to also address the elephant in the room. These pots, pans and assorted items. I'm in a caravan at the moment and I don't know what's going on. Ignorance is bliss, you're fine. So today we're going to be talking about a mystery called Mel's Hole. And once again I'm going to be taking you to Washington State, to a place called Ellensburg. So the year is 1997. My mum was about to pop because it was February 1997. And at this time there is a man on the radio airwaves and he's called Art Bell. And he was somewhat of a cult icon to the weirdos in the 90s and probably earlier. And basically he did a radio show called Coast to Coast and he spoke about really strange happenings and fringe topics, shit that probably if you're watching this you would be really into back in the day. One day in Feb of 97, Art Bell gets a fax actually, this is how 90s we are, from a man called Mel. Yes, Mel's Hole is about a man's hole. He basically got a fax from this dude Mel saying he's got a hole on the property. It's a very deep hole. I guess Art was like, I've got to speak to this guy. So in March of 1997 he actually had Mel on the show where he discussed this hole. He's from a place called Ellensburg, Washington. He's actually from specifically a place called the Monastash Ridge. That's not correct. Monastash Ridge. Maybe that's right. The hole is 9 feet by 9 inches in diameter, which doesn't mean anything to me. Conveniently, there's also no pictures of this hole, so you just have to use your imagination. Big hole. It's a big hole. And he and his neighbours have been throwing trash down it for quite a long time. But he found it quite strange that despite the amount of time him and his neighbours have been throwing down rubbish into this hole, nothing has ever reached the bottom. Like, he throws stuff in and he doesn't even hear he doesn't even hear anything. He doesn't hear anything hit the bottom. So he's like, bit weird. Also, what's weird is when he shouts into the hole, he doesn't hear an echo. Okay. Not that weird in my opinion. And also animals are really like repelled by this hole. Like, it's dogs and shit don't want to go in it. Birds sort of like fly around it. And also, like, when he takes his radio around the hole, it will, like, the frequency will go all weird. So as you can see, it's a great setup for a strange story. So Art Bell is eating this shit up and is like, wow, this does sound like a very interesting hole. But it gets even weirder. So Mel just so happens to be a very keen fisherman. So he decides to let some fishing line down into this hole. So he lets it out gradually, bit by bit. But ultimately, somehow, he ends up letting down 80,000 feet of fishing line into this hole. And guess what? It doesn't touch the bottom. Just for context, the Mariana Trench, which I didn't even really know what it was, is 35,000 feet. So it's double the size of the Mariana Trench, and it's still not hitting the ground. And he even attached a little packet of lifesavers to the end of his fishing line and was like, if there's water or if there's animals, it's going to come up like disintegrated. There was nothing. It came up dry. 80,000 meters. It's like, could you be bothered? Could you be asked? Well, Mel was. As I mentioned before, the dogs are afraid. And maybe this is why. So the neighbour's dog actually died and the neighbour just threw it into the hole. Now, I don't know what sort of like hick town this is. And no judgment, because I right now live in I live in backcountry at the moment. But so people are just throwing shit down holes. I know that. But I think if a dog dies, I don't know. This neighbour just decided to throw it down a hole, and that was that. And then a few days later, allegedly, the neighbour saw the same dog with the same collar back from the dead and tried to call out to this dog, and he didn't come. This was my first red flag with this story. It was the end of Mel's first call, and what I want to say is you can listen to all these calls on YouTube. I do not have the attention span to listen to 5 hours worth of all of Mel's calls throughout the years. But what I will say is I did listen to a chunk, I listened to 10 minutes, of the first call he made. And what is funny to me is, okay, what I'm going to tell you now, the rest of the story, the entire story is incredibly far-fetched. But my instincts when I hear Mel on that phone, the phone call he makes, he seems like a very genuine guy to me. It doesn't seem like somebody acting or someone doing a hoax. It sounds like a guy who's genuinely puzzled about this massive hole. I would urge you, if you want to, to go and listen to some of these calls, because holy shit, they are interesting. And that was the thing that kept me wanting to go into this story, because I was like, this guy does sound so credible, and he sounds like he's not totally crazy. Alright, now here's where it's gonna get a little bit fucked up. So in April 1997, Mel calls back again to Art's show and says that the military have actually blocked the road to his property. There was helicopter activity around the house, and when he asked, what's going on, let me go home, they were like, no, you can't access this property, there's been a plane crash. So Mel's like, well, I've not heard any news about a plane crash, and this is my house, so you're gonna let me in? What are you gonna do? They wouldn't let him access the property. And then they also said to Mel that you'll have to leave, and if you don't leave, we're gonna make it seem like there's a drug lab on your property. Now, what's interesting about this is that Mel was growing it's so wild. Mel was growing medicinal plants on the property. He claims that they weren't illegal, like the native tribes around the area knew about them. They had healing properties, and what was funny is they would grow quite close to this hole. So he was like, oh, okay, maybe, they could be interested in the plants, they might think the drugs, but I don't know. Obviously everything's incredibly fishy because they say there's a plane crash on the property and he can't access his house. After them saying we can make it seem like there's a drug lab on your property, Mel's like, well, I'm gonna go to the press. And the man who's on his property, the head of the operations, is like, well, no one's going to believe you. One of the neighbours said that they saw a dark beam of light. Now, I don't know what a dark beam of light is. It's not light, is it? So the neighbours saw something weird, and that was it, really. And then when he also called into the show, he's like, I'm being made to relocate to Australia, of all places, to Perth, to Australia. So that's what he did. So all this happens, and then 2 years go by. Nobody hears from Mel. He's living his life down under. Okay, this is where it gets proper mental. So Mel calls in the show once again in 2002 and claims that he's ended up in Nevada helping a Basque community with their sheep. And a Basque, by the way, is part of a community that comes from between France and Spain that came over and inhabited some areas in the UK. So it's like a sort of a tribe, and they're very good sheep people. So he's ended up helping them with the sheep. And apparently how this happened is, very sadly, Art was diagnosed with incurable esophageal cancer. Was obviously a bit devoed about that, as you would be, and then was contacted by a Native American tribe who wanted him to come out into the desert to study and learn about plant medicine. And obviously, as I mentioned before, this dude's all about the plant medicine, so he was like, yeah. At this stage, I'm still 100% like, this dude's like legit, because I'm like, oh, I see a bit of me in him, I mean, I do that. I go and help a Native American tribe discover plant medicine. That sounds great. While he's out there, however, I think he befriends this Basque tribe and then goes and helps them with the sheep. And I think he's just thinking at this point, fuck it, he's got terminal cancer, I'm just going to do what lights my fires, And when he's with this Basque group, he is shown another hole on the land, right? So this is in Nevada. They consider it to be a sacred place. It's kind of similar to the one that's on Art's property. And what they do is, for some reason, they decide to lower some ice into the hole, and then they keep some ice out on the surface as like a test ice. I don't know why they're doing this. They lower the ice down. Do you think it melts? No, it doesn't melt. Apparently the hole is also hot to the touch, so maybe that's why they're thinking, will ice melt? I mean, I don't know. when they pulled the ice back out, the ice hadn't melted. In fact, it had caught fire. Now this is where you start to lose me a little bit. For some reason, one of the members of the tribe decides, I want to go down, and they're like, no, it's not safe, we don't know what's down there. So instead of sending a human person down, they decide to send a sheep down. For what reason? Not sure. So they send the sheep down for 30 minutes. They bring the sheep back up. Guess what? Dead. Croaked it. The Basque are sheep people, as I mentioned before, so they decided to butcher the sheep, where they find a giant tumour in this body. Now, excuse me while I take a sip of my gin before I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you. Bark Lane. Doesn't kill you, makes you stronger. They then decide to cut the tumour open. What do they find in the tumour, you ask? Inside the tumour was, quote unquote, a fetal seal. A fetal seal. Okay? With the eyes of a human. So then they're looking at this seal with human eyes, and they're all staring at it for about 2 hours. They want to see what it does. It's sort of like crawling and shit. But they're just looking at it. They're just enamoured by this seal thing. And then after 2 hours, it just sort of crawls back into the hole. Now, at this point, I will have to say you've lost me. You've lost 80% of me. I want to believe. But you lost me at the fetal seal with human eyes. You did. I can't deny it. Then, Mel then wakes up in San Francisco with no memory of the past 12 days, needle marks in his arm, as if he's had a drip. So he wakes up in a San Francisco alley and is like, what the fuck? I've got no teeth. I've seen a seal with human eyes. What's going on? And he calls his nephew. I think he's just been helping him move, and is like, what the fuck? I've just woken up in San Francisco. The last thing I remember was boarding a bus. One thing to note as well with Art, and as I said, I've not listened to all these calls. I honestly might, though. I honestly might. And I think you honestly should. Art did say that there was military in the area around Mel's property at this time. Or Mel's old property, since he moved to Australia. Whatever, I can't keep up. The final call Mel makes is in December of 2002. Thank God. He now says a few things. He says, the Nevada hole is now under surveillance. The seal comes to visit occasionally. And he plans to stay away from all of this shit because he doesn't want the government involved in his life anymore. Mel never calls again, but he does leave us with something. His terminal esophageal cancer has miraculously cleared. And he believes it's all thanks to the fetal seal. So, the thing is with me is that I want to eat this shit up. I want to. And I am not saying definitively this is fucking bullshit, because it very well might be true. You know what I mean? You hear the Bible stories. You hear all the stories, and you're like, there's no way they're true. But some of them might be. You know what I mean? Like, people... Bitches be tripping, you know, sometimes. But who am I to decide if a fetal seal with human eyes is real or not? Just because I've never experienced it? We don't know how electricity works. We don't question that, do we? Bottom line is, I really want the Mel dude to be real. Do I think it's real? Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard because they had us. They had me there. They had me in the first half. They really had me in the first half. I will say that many locals in the area knew about this hole, allegedly. You can't, and many people do go and try and find Mel's hole, still to this day. There's obviously no pictures of it, as I mentioned earlier. One thing I will say, though, also, is that a lot of people who've listened to these phone calls, and that a lot of people think that only the first two were the real Mel, and then the final three are wannabes or impersonators. And this does fascinate me. And do you know what? I think I might do a follow-up episode having listened to all the calls. But I also don't want to listen to 5 hours of calls. Anyway, let me know what you think. Stay hungry. Stay foolish. Stay drinking gin. Stay keeping warm. Stay doing your thing. Stay going to pub quizzes. Honest to God, let me know what to do. or things that you don't want to know, then I won't do them. Thanks for listening. Bye.